today's video. So at the time, Archie Mountbatten Windsor was born May 6, 2019. And this was surrounded by controversy, largely to the unconventional.
It began as nothing more than a whisper, a faint murmur slinking through the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace, curling around chandeliers and velvet drapes like cigarette smoke after a scandalous night. But unlike other whispers that die behind closed doors, this one grew louder and louder until the marble walls themselves could no longer contain it. After years of perfectly measured silence, tight smiles, and those icy polished PR statements, Buckingham Palace finally cracked. And when the truth spilled, it sent shockwaves through the royal world. What they revealed about Archie and Lilibet's true identity left even the most die-hard royal watchers breathless. The monarchy has weathered centuries of betrayal, but nothing like this.
Hospital. Even though Meghan had let it be known she wanted a home birth, it was probably very realistic that her first child at 37, it was going to be born in hospital.
The certificate lists
Before we dive into the royal chaos, let's rewind, because this wasn't your average tabloid fairy tale cooked up on Twitter. This was the climax of nearly 6 years of hushed speculation, half-truths, and missing puzzle pieces surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's children, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Lilibet Diana. Those names might sound familiar, printed across glossy magazines and morning show headlines, but beneath the surface, they've been cloaked in mystery from day one. Remember 2019 when Meghan gave birth to Archie? The world expected flashing cameras outside a London hospital, doctors waving proudly, and the traditional royal photo op. But instead, we got nothing. No hospital steps, no medical staff, not even an official record of who delivered the baby. Just a short, awkwardly staged interview inside Windsor Castle Meghan looking flawless, Harry clutching his newborn like a man trying to remember his lines. The palace claimed the Duchess went into labor early that morning and delivered a healthy baby boy. But behind those stately gates, whispers spread like wildfire. Staff in the royal medical wing hadn't been notified. No security had been sent to do any hospital. It was as if the royal birth had happened completely off-grid, and that's when the doubts began. Because royal births aren't just personal milestones, they're state events. Every minute is logged, every announcement vetted. Yet in Meghan and Harry's case, the paperwork didn't line up. Some documents were incomplete, others were missing entirely. And when reporters started digging, they hit a wall of silence so thick it practically echoed. Fast forward to 2021, another baby, another storm. This time, Lilibet Diana, born in California, the Sussex's first child on American soil. Again, the palace wasn't informed until after the fact. Meghan and Harry claimed they told the Queen before naming her after Her Majesty's childhood nickname, Lilibet. But insiders whispered otherwise, that the Queen was never asked, and that the name felt more like a chess move than a tribute. And then came the strangest part, no photos. For weeks. When the Ford F pictures finally surfaced, eagle-eyed fans noticed oddities, shifting skin tones across different outlets, overly retouched faces, and zero live footage of either child. The inconsistencies piled up, and a chilling question began to echo through the kingdom. Who were Archie and Lilibet really? For years, Buckingham Palace clung to its motto, never complain, never explain, but that wall of silence just crumbled. According to multiple verified sources close to the palace, King Charles himself has authorized a full internal review of the Sussex children's royal lineage, and what they found was earth-shattering. Apparently, palace legal and genealogical teams have been quietly digging since 2018, compiling documents, timelines, and testimonies from the moment Meghan first announced her pregnancy. This review wasn't meant to see daylight until now. An anonymous aide confided to the Daily Chronicle, there have always been questions behind closed doors, not from malice, but necessity. Lineage, titles, inheritance, these are legal matters. When inconsistencies appeared, they had to be investigated. Translation, the palace was done pretending everything added up. And here's where it gets explosive. Leaks suggest procedural discrepancies in both children's birth records. Dates, signatures, even hospital verification details, none of it aligned with standard royal protocol. Something was off.
Confused. Shortly before 2 p.m. yesterday, Buckingham Palace announced that Meghan had gone into labour. Then, 40 minutes later...
And then came the bombshell speculation that Archie and Lilibet's birth certificates were never properly registered within the UK's royal archive. That's not a typo, that's a potential constitutional nightmare. If true, it could strip the children of their royal eligibility altogether. Titles, inheritance, even their place in the line of succession, all dependent on verified documentation. King Charles, sources say, was devastated but determined. He ordered total transparency, vowing that the crown could not be tainted by deception. The announcement slipped quietly into a press briefing, disguised as an administrative clarification. But make no mistake, it was a message. The crown was drawing a line in the sand. And Meghan and Harry? They went ballistic. Within hours, their spokesperson called the investigation a grotesque invasion of privacy, accusing the palace of trying to discredit an innocent family. Meghan, through a close friend, reportedly told The Times, "They've gone too far this time. My children are being dragged into a game they never asked to play." But Buckingham Palace wasn't flinching. One senior aide told The Telegraph, "This isn't punishment, it's preservation. If everything checks out, wonderful. If not, the truth must stand." That's when Britain and the internet exploded. Talk shows dissected every word of the palace statement. Body language experts rewound old Sussex interviews frame by frame. Was Meghan lying? Was Harry nervous? Was the palace staging a silent coup?
He was born at home at Frogmore Cottage in Windsor, or whether he was.
Meanwhile, social media went nuclear. Number Archie truth trended for 2 days straight. One viral tweet put it bluntly, "If you lie about a birth, you lie about everything." But others believed this was payback, a cold, calculated strike after years of Meghan's jabs at the firm. Some speculated the palace was bracing the public for a revelation so seismic it could rewrite royal history. Because here's the quiet truth no one dares to say out loud. The British monarchy lives and dies by legitimacy. Every privilege, every ounce of inherited power depends on pure, traceable bloodline. If that bloodline is ever questioned, the crown trembles. And that's why this moment felt different. This wasn't gossip anymore, it was history colliding with scandal. The monarchy's obsession with order had met Meghan Markle's flair for disruption. As the palace prepared to release an official clarification, royal experts braced for the storm. Whatever it contained would either redeem the Sussexes or bury them. Meanwhile, in California's sun-soaked Montecito, Meghan was reportedly fuming, pacing, yelling, calling advisors, furious that her children were being targeted, convinced this was a racist witch hunt. But the world had changed since 2020. Sympathy had faded. Even her former supporters were starting to ask the same haunting question. What if Buckingham Palace isn't lying this time? The deeper investigators dug, the stranger it became. Birth certificates, hospital logs, christening schedules, none of it told the same story. A missing registrar's signature here, an unverified hospital entry there. Individually minor, but together, they painted a chilling picture. One palace source described it as a patchwork of secrecy stitched together with contradictions. Behind the marble doors, alarms were ringing. This wasn't tabloid talk, this was the royal household itself raising doubts about the Sussex narrative. And as whispers spread, senior courtiers realized the truth could shake the monarchy's legal foundations. If the palace couldn't verify when, where, or how the Sussex children were born, it wouldn't just be reputational damage, it could spark a constitutional crisis. According to royal protocol, every child in the line of succession must have fully verified birth documentation, hospital confirmation, witnesses, medical signatures. If any of that went missing, titles could be rescinded. And that, insiders say, is what terrified Meghan the most. In Montecito, chaos reigned. Meghan was allegedly awake all night, phoning lawyers, pacing barefoot across marble floors, terrified that the palace would leak something irreversible. Harry, meanwhile, was shattered. Friends said he paced their home in disbelief, his own father authorizing an investigation into his children. Desperate to regain control, Meghan reached out to sympathetic journalists, spinning the story as the palace is targeting our children to punish us, but it was too late. The whispers had escaped. By the time early drafts of the palace's internal findings circulated among senior officials, London was buzzing like a live wire. The report outlined not a single scandal, but a pattern of omissions. Missing witnesses, unverified hospital entries, no official correspondence from any facility in the UK or US. And then came what insiders now call the Lilibet clause. It referenced direct inconsistencies between the Sussexes' public account of Lilibet's birth and data from Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. When investigators found a restricted digital file locked by a high-profile law firm tied to the Sussexes, Buckingham Palace shifted from cautious concern to full-blown crisis mode. Clarence House meetings, legal teams on standby. King Charles personally briefed. Witnesses say the king's face went pale as he read the findings, a mix of heartbreak and fury. Years of division had already scarred his reign. Now this. Palace unable to authenticate Sussex children's documents. Headlines exploded. Questions mount over Sussex records. Royal truth files ignite global storm. The stakes weren't just emotional. Millions in brand deals, podcast contracts, and Hollywood partnerships hung in the balance. Her name was her empire, and that empire was bleeding. The sleepless nights grew worse. Insiders whispered that Meghan burst into tears without warning, shouting one moment, sobbing the next. Her friend said she felt betrayed by the entire world. Harry saw the ghost of his mother in every headline, the relentless coverage, the judgment, the loss of control. Only this time, the victim wasn't Diana, it was his own wife and children. Then came the breaking point, a leaked recording. Somehow, a private conversation between two palace aides made its way to a London network. Within hours, snippets were action everywhere. One aide could be heard saying the words that detonated across the world. These irregularities could jeopardize royal lineage legitimacy. That phrase alone sent chills across continents. Global media went wild. British tabloids screamed, "Palace bombshell," while American outlets cautiously dissected the implications. Opinion shows turned into shouting matches. Some defended Meghan as a scapegoat of a cold institution. Others called her the architect of her own downfall. Even Hollywood began to flinch. Executives distanced themselves quietly. Netflix paused future Sussex projects. Spotify, still bruised from their earlier deal fallout, refused comment. Friends who once championed the couple at galas stopped returning calls. Even Oprah, once Meghan's fiercest ally, reportedly told her to take a step back. Montecito became a gilded cage. Still, Meghan refused to surrender. If the palace was going to destroy her image, she'd reclaim it herself. She began plotting her own televised tell-all, her version of the truth. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere turned volcanic. Meghan, according to sources, was screaming and sobbing simultaneously. She stormed through the halls demanding answers from her team. How could they do this? How could they publish that? Her fury was legendary, but this time, it was laced with desperation. Her control over the narrative was gone. Harry sat pale and wordless, torn between defending his wife and facing the horrifying possibility that the palace wouldn't have moved without absolute proof. Her team scrambled. Within a day, a crisis command unit was established, top Hollywood consultants, PR wizards, and legal strategists. Drafts of responses were written, shredded, rewritten again. Meghan was told to stay quiet, but Meghan Markle doesn't stay quiet. She decided instead to go straight to camera. She began reaching out to networks, pitching a deeply personal sit-down, interview one last chance to reclaim her image, but doors closed one after another. Networks were terrified of legal fallout. Even Oprah reportedly said, "Not this time." So Meghan took matters into her own hands. She would film it herself, right there in Montecito, perfectly lit, perfectly styled, perfectly emotional. Harry couldn't even watch. He reportedly sat in another room, staring out the window in silence. He looked like a man who knew this was the end, one insider said softly. And in many ways it was. The fallout came swiftly. Netflix quietly suspended all upcoming projects. Archwell sponsors backed out one by one. Charities distanced themselves for neutrality. Invitations dried up. Meghan's name, once a headline of empowerment, became shorthand for scandal. Then came the final blow, not from tabloids, not from YouTube, but from the palace itself. Buried deep in the Royal Gazette came a single line, almost invisible amid bureaucratic text. Amendments have been made to the succession registry, reflecting the correction of prior administrative inconsistencies. No names, no details, but everyone knew what it meant. The record had been rewritten. And just like that, the saga ended not with a grand statement, but with a silent stroke of the royal pen. Years of speculation, drama, and denial erased in one quiet act. Meghan had fought the monarchy, the media, and the world, and for a while, she'd won. But in the end, it wasn't a war she could control. The palace played the long game, as it always had. And when the curtain finally fell, the silence left behind was deafening, the kind that lingers longer than any scandal ever could.